Welcome to the Bottom Line Live. Every Thursday, I'm a little bit early today because I needed to change up my schedule a little bit. But I want to tell you guys all about QuickBooks Online. So I get a lot of questions about QuickBooks, and I've noticed that some people are maybe intimidated by it because it's newer, you know, or they don't like it, or they have other issues. But honestly, I have about 120 clients on QuickBooks Online, and I don't have very many issues at all. Okay, I'm going to share this to the Wealth Dynamics group because I haven't done that yet. So here we go. Wealth Dynamics, the Bottom Line Live. I even had someone ask me yesterday, actually, about QuickBooks Online, and he definitely had the idea that it wasn't a good product. Another bookkeeper told him, like, oh, you definitely shouldn't use it. It's terrible. You know, go to QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise, all these kinds of things. And I said to him, you know, it really depends on what type of company you have, what type of industry. There are things that QuickBooks Online doesn't do well. It doesn't do inventory very well, for instance. At some point, I know they want it to be able to, but you could pretty much ask anybody and it just doesn't do it very well. I know they want it to, and at some point maybe it will, but it definitely doesn't do it yet. But other than that, what I've found is, like I said, I have over 120 clients that are on QuickBooks Online, and we do their bookkeeping, you know, whether it's weekly, monthly, whatever it is, we haven't had any issues. Okay, it's software. Every once in a while, there's bugs. If you're trying to file 1099s on the last 1099 day, you do run into flows and bugs. Like, I'm not going to ever say that it's perfect, but it's a great software. And I know that sometimes bookkeepers and CPAs who have been using QuickBooks Desktop for a very long time don't like it and they won't recommend it. But let me tell you a secret. QuickBooks is actually trying to get rid of Desktop. They've switched it over to a subscription model. It's basically, they're trying to, you know, sunset or whatever. So I want to show you guys, I want to give you some reality. I want to play around in QuickBooks just a little bit so you see it. It's a lot more modern and a lot less clunky, as Lexi likes to tell me, than QuickBooks Desktop. I grew up using QuickBooks Desktop, so I'm not against Desktop for any reason. I'm only against other software like Xero and NetSuite because I think they're really hard to use. But I love Intuit. You know, yes, they have their issues. Yes, they have their things, I'm sure, but I love QuickBooks. Their desktop product is great. But their online product, to me, is even better, and they're constantly improving it. So while that does make it so you have to keep up with the changes and figure out, you know, what's happening, when you're doing bookkeeping every day like we are, that's not too difficult to keep up with. Not only do I have about 120 people that we're doing consistent bookkeeping for, I have probably another, at any given time, 25 people who reach out just for a consultation, and I teach them how to use QuickBooks Online. I switch people over from desktop to online. I switch people over from Xero to QuickBooks Online all the time. So I'm pretty used to it, and that is the software I'm always going to recommend. It doesn't mean that every other software is bad, but QuickBooks just does everything you need it to do. It's very logical. It's very user friendly. But again, if you aren't experienced in bookkeeping, I wouldn't say you should try to do it on your own. You can do part of it on your own for sure, especially if you're just starting out, but you have to at least understand what type of entry it is. It's not all just data entry. Sometimes there's specific transactions you need to know whether they go on the balance sheet, or the profit and loss. You need to know, whether it's an asset or an expense or equity, these things. So it's important to understand before you start getting into it, but it's pretty user friendly. So I am going to share my screen and show you guys some QuickBooks, which is super exciting. I know this is our favorite subject. Feel free to write any questions that you have. Yeah, exactly. Lexi says she's not a fan of clunky. You have to see how many different softwares she tells me. I just don't like it. It's clunky. And I had to try to figure out what clunky for software means. But to me, clunky for software means it's not smooth. It's not user friendly. It doesn't, you can't go into it and easily know where to go next. And on top of that, if it looks like it was built in the 1990s, it's clunky. We want modern, sleek software. We want it to be pretty. We want it to be sexy. We want to know where to go without having to call someone to ask them where that button is. So without any further ado, I'm going to show you guys QuickBooks. Now, this is a sample company file that I showed you this in the last webinar too. It's used for bookkeepers and people to learn on. So it's not perfect. They enter some entries in weird on purpose so that you can see it. But I'm going to show you guys some of the different areas, and we're going to have a QuickBooks party. So here we go. I'm going to share QuickBooks. All right. So I click here, click here, and I want to share this one. Dun, 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 dun. So this is like your front page of QuickBooks. This is our sample company called Craig's Design and Landscaping Service. This page doesn't really tell you too many things, but it kind of shows you flow lines of how money moves in and out. So one of the most common places that you're going to be in QuickBooks is this banking section here. What this does is it connects to your bank accounts and credit cards. You can see they have a checking account, a savings account, and a credit card. And all the transactions download. And then you can go into here and add them. You can, if you're entering invoices and payments, if you're entering bills and payments, if you're entering checks that you're going to be sending out, you can match them here. If it's something that you have not entered at all, and it's just coming straight from the bank account, you're going to add it here. So, here's a few that you didn't enter anything, or the person working in these books didn't enter anything. So you would go in here, you could click on it, you could find out what this thing is, and then you would enter it in. So in this case, it was a refund for their backhoe, from this rental right here, the backhoe rental. So you would enter this in, A1 rental. And you're going to click add, and you are going to save it. Now you have to be careful when you're entering transactions. If you don't get this little box that shows you, excuse me, that it's asking you to save, you didn't actually save it. And there's a little lag, so you have to give it a minute. And then you're going to use, a category or a chart of accounts, expense account, however you want to call it. But we're probably going to use equipment rental. It probably already exists in here. If it didn't, you can add it. And it tells you what type of expense it is. So this, or what type of transaction, this is an expense. And then you're just going to add it. If there was a customer that it was related to, you could add it right here. If there's more memo you wanted to add, you can add it here. If there's a tag you wanted to add, you could add it here. For instance, maybe you want to tag it equipment. Maybe you want to tag it refunds, whatever. You can add more data to it. And then you just add it here. Now, let's say it's something that you already had entered, like a check that you wrote or a payment. So you can see here it was a payment that you received, and all you would have to do is match it. We prefer to match from deposits. I'm not saying these transactions are all perfect, but they're just to practice on, right? So for instance, here's a check that you wrote. So first, whoever the guy that runs this landscaping company is, came in here and he wrote the check. So he wrote a check to Chin's Gas and Oil. Here, let me make this bigger for you guys. And he made sure that it was coming out of the correct account. So it's the checking account. He put the check number in. You can either print this directly from QuickBooks, or you can handwrite a check and then enter it in. and he put in the category, he put in the amount, and then when it cleared the bank account, it shows up right here, and then you can just match it. So this is your main area you're going to be in QuickBooks. You're going to be matching and adding things. And then you, after you're done with that, you're going to reconcile. Now, there's a lot of things that I can tell you about how to do this, and this isn't necessarily like a QuickBooks class as far as how do you do this entry or how do you do this entry, but I am making a class. So I want to let you guys know if anybody does want that class. It's in the works. I'm doing a very detailed, here's how you enter these transactions, here's how you do this. This is just because people ask me questions about QuickBooks. Is it hard? Is it scary? Whatever. And this is so you guys can see it. They do have different screens. Like right now, I'm looking at it from the accountant screen. Let's see if they let you change it on this sample company. They might or might not. Okay, switch to business view. Business view, I'm not as familiar with because it's new, but some of you that have QuickBooks, you'll see it and it looks more like this. So it doesn't look like what I see. It looks like this. So when you go into banking, you know, that's not it. Now it's going to be in not the reports. See, I don't even know this one as well. Bookkeeping. It's going to be in the bookkeeping tab, and you want to see your transactions. So this is the same exact thing that I was looking at on the accountant screen. This is on the business screen. So this is how you guys might be seeing it. If you don't want to look at it like this, like I don't want to look at it like this, you can just change it right here to accountant view, and accountant view is easier. For me, I'm more used to it, but there are both views and they are interchangeable. And then right here, you can also show your transfers. Like people ask me this sometimes. Okay, so I paid my credit card from my business bank account. How do I show that? You would show that as a transfer if you're tracking that account. If you're not tracking that account, it would be, you know, an owner's payout, or there's a few different ways. But this is like your banking screen. This is, if you ask my bookkeepers, this is probably the main area that they're in. Once you have all these transactions entered, you're going to go into the reconciliation window. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so you guys can just see my face and I can tell you more things about QuickBooks. So QuickBooks is always updating and changing, and you have to stay up with it. They do send out emails. They do a lot of, you know, webinars and different things to train us on it. And they also do, once a year, they do a QuickBooks Connect event, which has been obviously online for the last couple of years, but hopefully they'll start doing it live again, where they tell you all the new features they're going to be rolling out. So we try to really stay on top of it and know what's happening. So if you do ever run into a situation where your QuickBooks isn't familiar to you anymore, you can ask me. We can do a consultation. I can teach you it, or, you know, once my class is made, you can buy the class. Okay, good. So back to QuickBooks. Back to sharing my screen here. And please, if you have any questions, I'm checking the questions, so feel free to write your questions in. People ask me questions about QuickBooks all the time, so now's your chance to have me show you in real time and not have to pay me any money to show you. Take advantage. If you're not on this webinar and you're watching it, rather you're not on it live and you're watching it later, then email me and we can set it up. Okay, so now the next place that you're going to go once all these things are entered is you're going to reconcile. Now, people ask me, why do you reconcile? So there's a few different reasons. The main reason being that you don't want to pay more taxes than you have to, right? So let's say there was a glitch. Let's say you entered a check twice, or it was a deposit rather, and you have an extra deposit of about $10,000, $15,000, and you didn't notice, and you go to do your taxes, and now you're paying taxes on $15,000 that never existed. We don't want that. We want you to only have to pay what you owe. So reconciling, you're balancing what you entered in your QuickBooks with what's on your bank statement. generally your bank statement's right. Of course, there can be errors in your bank statements as well, but those will show up as well based on what you entered. So you're going to have the bank statement, which obviously I do not have for this account. And you're going to need to have the beginning balance, which is, let's say they say on January 1st, it had such and such a balance. And then on January 31st, let's say the balance was 10,000. And we're going to say that it was January 31st. So this is what you do to start. Then you click Start Reconciling. And it takes you to a screen that looks like this. Now, there's not a lot of entries in here because we didn't finish doing the bookkeeping for the month. But you can start, you would have the bank statement and you would check each one of these. And at the end, your difference would be 0. And it is very important to reconcile. I've had people ask me, well, can you just not reconcile, because they think that that will save them money, but it doesn't save you money, because in the end, you want your books to be accurate. And I am never going to sell you not accurate books. So you're not going to find someone who will just enter transactions for you and not reconcile. Or if you do, they're just not a very good bookkeeper, or they're new and they haven't made that mistake yet. But as soon as they do, they're never going to do it again. Let me tell you from experience. So this is what the reconciliation screen looks like. Obviously, I threw in a fake number, so it's not at 0, but in the end, you want it to be 0. And then once you have that done, and you can't, you know, sometimes I see even people taking my bookkeeping test, they leave things in the reconciliation uncleared, and they don't think about what that means. If something is showing up here, it's in your books. So if it's not on the bank statement and it's on here, it's a problem. You have to figure out why it's that way. Is it a duplicate transaction? Is it a check that you wrote that the person hasn't cashed yet or deposited? You have to find out what it is. You can never leave things in uncleared in the reconciliation, because that means that there's something wrong with your books. So you got to be like really investigative, find why it's that way. You want it to get to 0. Anything other than 0 is really not acceptable. Because think about this, even if it shows $1 off, that doesn't mean that it's really only $1 off. That could be $100,001 in one direction that it's off that you didn't catch. So sometimes it could be a few different things that didn't, you know, show up correctly. So you want to always get it to 0. Okay, now the next thing that you're going to want to look at is reports. We went over reports a lot last week, so I'm going to show you guys that in a second. But I wanted to check in here. I feel like you guys should ask me some questions, because you do ask me questions all the time. Lexi, give me some questions that people normally ask us so I can answer them. I'm trying to come up with all of the ones that I can come up with, but give me some more. Give me some questions, people. Free bookkeeping advice right here. Okay, so next I'm going to go into reports, and I'm going to show you guys the reports. So after you have categorized in your banking screen and you have reconciled, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to look at the reports. So we went over these a little bit last week, but here's your profit and loss. So everything that you have entered is going to show up in here. So you can run this by any time period you want. You can run it for today, which there's probably nothing in here for today. Oh, you know, except for the equipment rental I entered. You can run it for last year, which there probably isn't anything in there for last year because this is just a test company and they probably, oh, there's a little bit in for last year. Look at me, proven wrong. You can run it for last month. And I don't know, there is stuff in there for last month. And you can get all of your information. So this is how you can find out whether you're profitable or not, of what you're doing is working. You can also run it cash basis or accrual basis, and you hit cash and run report, and that's going to be different than accrual. We did go over this a little bit, but I'm going to go over it again. So cash means what actually came in and what actually went out. So you wrote a check, the money's still in your bank account until it clears. So cash basis accounting would count the money still in your bank account until it clears your bank account. You received a bill and you haven't paid it yet. So that money is still in your bank account until you pay the bill and it comes out. So cash basis accounting or bookkeeping is very accurate. It is exactly what it is. Accrual basis is showing what adds up to it, right? That's what accrue means, like summarize, come together, add up. So on accrual basis accounting or bookkeeping, if you write an invoice and you send it out, that counts as income because that money will come in, and you want to know what is going to come in as soon as you accrue it, as soon as you incur that expense. So let's say you have employees that are working, even though you don't pay them payroll until the end of the month, you have accrued that expense as soon as that day that they worked. So in accrual basis accounting, that's when that expense would show up, is, you know, every single day there is an expense, or, you know, maybe you'd make it simpler and enter it once a week or whatever, but that's the idea. Or let's say you receive a bill and you haven't paid it yet, but as soon as you receive the bill, that's when it comes out of your account in accrual accounting, because you want to know after everything, what do you have left? Most companies in the United States use cash accounting, and you don't really have to worry too much about accrual accounting. It is useful to know if you want to see your accounts receivable, meaning what people owe you, or your accounts payable, meaning what you owe other people. But for the most part, it's most companies in the US, I would say 99% are using cash accounting. There are some corporations that their CPAs chose to use accrual accounting for different reasons. So I can't promise you that your taxes are not accrual, but I will tell you that most companies use cash accounting, except for really big corporations like to use accrual, because it's, for them, it's easier to think with what is there based on what's coming in and what's coming out, and not what's actually there. But hard to do financial planning based on money that's not actually in your bank account. So I would prefer cash accounting anyways. But you can see here that on cash accounting for March, it shows that the total income is $4,200, and on accrual accounting for March, it shows that the total income is $8,300. What that means is that he invoiced $8,300 worth of income, but only $4,300 or whatever it was actually came in. So that's the difference. So there's a lot of different information that you can get by running these reports, and they're very, very important to look at. I look at mine almost every day. I know Jerry looks at his just about every day, probably every few days or whatever, because that's how you know if you're going in the right direction or not. The next report to look at, of course, we went over this, is going to be your balance sheet account. I'm not going to go over this again too much. I just wanted to show you guys. Those are the main areas that you are ever going to be in your bookkeeping. There's a couple more things I want to show you, but let's just check in and see if Lexi thought of any questions that we should answer while we are here. What is the best and easiest way to categorize myself? So first I would say don't sell yourself, because you know you're not a tax deductible expense. No, I'm just kidding. I know that you mean to do it yourself. So I would say get some training on QuickBooks before you start, because you need to know what should go on the balance sheet accounts and what should go on the profit and loss account. So just get a little bit of training to get oriented. Like I said, I do consultations by the hour, and I can show you for your company, here's the things you need to know, and then you can do it, because it's not hard to do data entry or categorization in QuickBooks Online. It's just that there's going to be some transactions that you don't know how to do them. So I would start with doing the ones that you know how to do, and then go to the ones that you maybe don't know how to do, and maybe you need some advice, you need some help. So you just save those for later, basically. Let's see, I feel like there was more questions on here, and it's only showing me this one. Let me see if there's a better view. Oh, here we go. 3 comments. Show me all the comments. It is only showing me 1 comment in this view. I don't like it. Yep, Don't know how to see the rest of the views when I'm screen sharing like this, or don't know how to see the rest of the comments. Lame. Oh, look, and now I'm playing my own webinar on my webinar. Good. So that, hopefully that answered that for you. I really, unfortunately, don't see a way for me to see the rest of the questions, so I'll have to look at them later. Okay. So back to QuickBooks. Oh, you know what? We're at our tail end of our webinar, and there's so much more I can say about QuickBooks because I live in QuickBooks. I live and breathe in QuickBooks. Sometimes I'm walking my dog down the street. People call me and ask me, how do you do blah, blah, blah in QuickBooks? And I just say, so you go to the top right-hand corner and you click that button, and then you click on this, and I can practically do it with my eyes closed. So like I said, guys, I am making a class for this. It's going to be for bookkeepers or for business owners who want to learn how to do bookkeeping. Other than that, you can also reach out to me to do consultation for you. My best way to reach me is through email. It's maya@solvencynow.com. You can also go to my website, solvencynow.com. You can also comment on this video, and I will see the comments after the video, and I can reach out to you. Or you can send me a message on Facebook, or you can find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, either on Maya Weinrep or Solvency Now. And I help every person, no matter what size your company is, whether it's a consultation, whether we do your bookkeeping. We love taking on complex bookkeeping. We have some that we are wrapping up right now that are basically like their books got really messed up by somebody they had in-house that didn't really know what they're doing, and we're cleaning it all up, and those books are going to be pretty and perfect when we're done. So we love doing catch up and cleanup work. We love helping people who come and just are like stressed out about their books, and we go, we got you. Whether you need payroll, sales tax, anything like that, we can help you, or we can teach you how to do it. Okay, so I guess that's it for today. I was talking fast, but we didn't get through that much. I will do more next week on Thursday at the bottom line live. Bye, guys.